Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as of this recording, it's a holiday in Canada. So we're doing an abbreviated show, but that's okay. I'm not alone as I'm joined by my compatriot on this. I don't celebrate the monarchy, but I'm joined with my best friend, my good brother, the guy who makes sure stuff doesn't break in the middle of the night.
Alex, the producer. And I guess, I mean, you don't have to celebrate the monarchy to celebrate that you got a day off.
Yeah, it's true. So actually, here in the lovely city of Guelph, it's been a fairly quiet Victoria Day weekend. All the kids have gone home from university. Unfortunately, it rained on Saturday, so my baseball game got rained out. It was the home opener. I'm really, really sad about that. And it's just been quiet. Now, there might be fireworks tonight from what I've heard, but people got to work in the morning, so I don't know about that.
We had some last night, and I was ready to fall asleep, and I thought it was gunfire, and I was like, oh my God. Because somebody was firing them like right next to my window in the street.
Oh, Jesus.
And then that's when I realized, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a holiday tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Like, this holiday feels like it snuck up out of nowhere, because, like, here in Guelph, it is dead quiet. Like, I went to
because Mother's Day was last weekend, so we don't think of another holiday or another event day being so quickly in succession.
Yeah, like I went to the university today to catch a bus home today. Forgot that it was holiday, so that was an adventure in and of itself. But it was a ghost town, and I go to this park, and I go to this little plaza to go to this place for lunch all the time on the other side of town. And normally I have to dodge cars, and it's a whole to do. Went there, giant parking lot. I'm like, I'm gonna cut across the parking lot because I'm adventurous. But sorry, got something stuck in my throat, but I'm good. So as we most often do, we are going to be kind of talking about what our week's been up to. But as I mentioned off the top there, this is an abbreviated show. This is sort of a turd or treasure for the weekend. So there's going to be some reviews from myself, some reviews from Alex. We got some Transformers. We got some Star Trek in here. What do we got coming up from you, Alex?
We've got instant cameras, and we've got giant DVD box sets, and more probably.
Yeah, like we've just got a lot of stuff. I think even Ken has a review in here as well.
Basically, we were going to do, or we usually do like a regular show, and then we have a review show of bonus reviews and whatnot. And then we were like, wait a minute, it's a holiday. And
we should take one. We should.
And it's been too long, like not long weekends, but 2 weekends where we've been really busy in a row. And it's like, let's just combine the two things into one. It's also been a very
slow news cycle.
Yeah. Like there's been a couple news stories, but like nothing spectacular. So it's like, you know what? It's not a big deal if we miss it. We'll sort of, shoot the shit, talk about what we've been doing. And then, we'll throw it to all the reviews. And then we'll probably come back at the end and just sort of see, hey, here's what's coming up on the site and all that fun jazz.
Yeah. I guess as for me this weekend, as I was mentioning, I was supposed to go to the Guelph Royals home opener. Unfortunately, it was rained out because the field conditions were not good enough to play. They do have that home opener rescheduled for next weekend, so really looking forward to that. So far, the Royals are 1-1 on the season, if I'm not mistaken. They won one, they lost one. I went to the local Guelph Poetry Slam on Saturday night, as I do once a month here usually. Didn't win, but I came in third place, and the people in first and second place were tied. So they split the $100 prize.
I thought it would have been like an arm wrestling or like a Rochambeau, contest to finish it off. I'm going to kick you right in the downstairs. Doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, and whoever falls over first loses.
Yeah. And I think I only lost between those guys. I think I was either a full point behind or 0.5 point behind. It was a tough crowd this week, but it was fairly fun. And speaking of Guelph Poetry Slam, if you happen to be local to the area, I'm actually a featured performer next month for Indigenous History Month, and I think I'm launching a book That's right. I'm going to be included in a book of Indigenous poetry that comes out this summer, and I think the launch
Oh,
is next
cool.
month. Yeah, so that was surprise when I'm like, "Hey, Mike, you're on a book tour." I'm like, "Wait, what?" So again,
The next question should be nobody who informed me and where's my pay?
yeah. So yeah, I should start to receive some copies of that fairly soon.
That'll be neat.
Uh,
Something to put on your shelf forever.
yeah, I think I do get paid some kind of an honorarium, so that's
Well,
great.
and honestly, even if not, that's just something that was unexpected, right? So
Yeah, it's like, wow, I'm published and I didn't have to self-publish. So that says something to me.
so that says that says what the f was that college course for?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean,
That one where it's like learning to publish, and it's like contact publishers using snail mail, which is not how you do that anymore.
but say, yeah, there was an old college course I took a couple of years back, and it was Guide to Publishing, and the course details were like 2 or 3 years minimum out of date.
It was
And
it looked like you showed me the syllabus, and
yeah,
I was like, this looks like it was made in 2004, and
yeah.
they just didn't update it in like 15 years.
Oh yeah, it was so frustrating. And even the book you had to buy to contact publishers by snail mail, you don't know if these places have moved, if they're out of
Well,
business. COVID
like
happened.
like isn't Penguin and Random House like aren't they like the only publisher left that takes solicitations?
There are remarkably few, and getting through the front door is kind of a pain in the
Well,
ass.
or when you see like when they have the list of publishers and you find out that like 7 of them are now owned by one company, so it's like, well, that lowers the odds.
And then like, yeah, so I'll have more information about that soon. I'm also going to be at the Guelph Multicultural Festival. I'm going to be helping doing some storytelling and some MCing, helping my friend Peter out. I just got to get our song and dance routine ready to go. I'm going to be MCing an event later in the month featuring more Indigenous poets and kind of a gathering meal. So I'll be doing that later in the month. So next month is busy for me, remarkably busy. So other
Awesome.
than that, that has been my life for the last
Well,
week. What about
you've
you?
been playing any games or seeing any movies though?
Playing games. I finally finished Resident Evil 4 remake on the PlayStation 5. Fantastic experience, definitely worth it. Don't know if it was worth $100, but I still had fun with it. I'm gonna be going back to Persona 4 Golden to finish that up, and then my summer game, because if you can do it in 3 days, I can probably do it in like six. I'll probably finish Final Fantasy 6 again for the
Oh,
first time in
oh,
forever.
I did that in one day. Now,
Yeah.
that is if you consider playing for like 18 hours one day.
Jeez, you must chew through controllers something fierce.
I leave them plugged in.
Oh, that's okay. Because
The-
I have to
the-
swap mine out every few hours.
I didn't use the headset, like like the wireless pulse headset. I
Yeah.
used my good set of headphones plugged into the controller because if you set it right, there's a setting on the PlayStation 4 Pro and the PS5 that if you have the controller plugged in, it won't even use the battery at all. Like it actually switches communication to being USB, so it actually increases the audio quality and makes it as if it was a sound card.
Oh, that's cool.
So it doesn't use Bluetooth at all, like to communicate to the controller, and it is audibly better sounding when you plug it in that way. So I was like, I'm playing Final Fantasy VI. I'm playing it with good headphones on and not wireless.
All right. So, yeah, that's what I'm kind of looking forward to getting to do. As for watching movies, I did do I watched Flashdance, which will be up on the show next week on 4K.
I
And
always get that movie confused with Fame.
yeah, I really liked what I saw, but I'll share my thoughts next
Is
week.
This is the one I know the Fame song, but this is the one where she does like the really
Foot
fast
dancing.
the foot dance fast thing where she gets covered in water, right?
Yeah, and how she gets to that and why she does what she does. It's very interesting. And I also forgot that movie has a Star Wars connection. The girl who played Alex in that movie, I think her name is Jennifer Beals. She was in Book of Boba Fett. I'm guessing she was the hostess at the cantina in Anchorhead or wherever Fett's operation was. I'm guessing that, but yeah, so I found that out randomly. Trying to think of what else I did this week. Wanted to get out to see Sisu. I didn't get around to doing that just because my schedule's been so busy. I played a lot of Pokemon Go today because I'm starting to prepare for the Shadow Raids on the weekend, and I got my Master Ball today, which was pretty exciting. So, me and the local
Oh,
Pokemon Go community, we got plans to meet up next week. I think I'm one of the weird community leaders, and I'm like, okay, guys, here's what I know. I'm in charge of the Pokemon Go Discord here, or I'm one of the kind of moderators on it. And I'm like, okay, here's all the info. Here's what I know. Here's what it takes to max out all these event items. Won't cost you a thing. It's just going to cost you a bit of a grind. And yeah, so that's me. What about you?
so what you're saying is when I visit you, I should waste your Master Ball in a Pidgey and then just watch you melt down
I think I would die. I literally think I might die.
on on a Magikarp. At least you could work on that to turn into a Gyarados. But still, as far as things I've watched, a lot of stuff for review. A lot of episodes of things.
Bonanza!
Bonanza, yeah, 400 episodes. I didn't watch 400, but you know what I mean.
I
I
think you might
watched.
die.
I mentioned it in the review that is in the show, but I watched 2 episodes per season, one from disc like one and one from disc 4 of each season, so that I could just get a general idea. So because that's still 28 episodes I had to
I love
watch.
Bonanza.
Yeah, but I mean, I wanted to give it its fair shake and watch it, a little bit from each, and then I watched the whole special features disc because it had a ton of cool shit on there. But outside of that, randomly, I watched Witness, the Harrison Ford movie. I hadn't seen it in years, maybe even 20 years or more. The one where the Amish kid witnesses the murder.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that, when you said Star Wars reference, I was like, oh yeah. When I was watching that, I realized that the one main bad guy, like, there's 3 bad guys in it, right? The one is Danny Glover, one is his police captain who's also corrupt, and the third bad guy is fucking Gold Leader from Star Wars.
Fuck, really?
Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
go- and, but what's funny is I didn't recognize him as Gold Leader at first. I was like, "Oh my god, it's the dude, like the one that helps them in Strange Brew, the French Canadian hockey player." And I was like, "Oh, it's him." And it's like, "Oh no, wait, where have I seen him before without a mustache?" And it's like, "Oh, Gold Leader." And then I typed in, Gold Leader on YouTube, and the first thing that pops up is the bloopers of him swearing because he kept screwing his lines up. And I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, that's my little funny Star Wars reference. I was like, holy shit. Also, for a movie from 1985, it holds up pretty darn well for a thriller. Not a lot do. It is also very weird seeing Danny Glover as a bad guy. But yes, gaming wise, in the last couple weeks, it's been all the Final Fantasy stuff. I've got a bunch of games for review, and I can tell you, I think, am I allowed to talk about these ones? What I've got? Yes, I believe so. I'm working on you remember the arcade game Raiden?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Raiden 3 Cross Mikado Maniacs. That is one of those crazy remix, remake remixes of the classic arcade games. I'm working on that. That's available on like most platforms. I just received Loop 8, which is an RPG coming out from Marvelous and Xseed. Like, as in, like, as we were recording here, it popped up here that I've received that. But that review will come at a later time. But just I've received that. I've also got a few indie titles that I'm working on, as well as there's a few things in the works that might take me some time to get through movie wise, but that's sort of been it. It's been sort of an off week, if that makes any sense, because I was visiting family before, catching up. Haven't been able to get out because we're still figuring out transit situations here, and then I spent the last day trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with my building and was it going to explode because the walls were vibrating and rattling until I contacted the owners, and they came in on a holiday to check out what was wrong because the boiler room was making horrifying sounds. No word as to what actually happened, except that the rattling has stopped and my fear of this place exploding has gone drastically down.
Good. Um, All right, guys. So we're going to throw things to our main review show here this week. So, like I said, from me, you're going to hear some Star Trek. You're going to hear some Transformers. And I think I've got something else in there. And yeah, then Alex has his stuff. And we also have something from Ken. So I'm not sure what order these are going into because Alex is going to edit them. So
they're going to go in, it might be alphabetical, but it's going to go in whatever order shows up in the editing software when I'm dragging and dropping them in.
all right. So here we go. Review-O-Rama. We'll be back, guys, right after these reviews right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
I am Vector Sigma. Before Cybertron was, I was. Who reactivates me?
I'm Megatron, one of your own creations.
Why have you done this thing?
You must give personalities to the Stunticons. They're cybernetic creations like ourselves. Fill them with hatred for the Autobots and all that the Autobots stand for.
Present them to me.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk about something really cool we got from our friends over at Hasbro. I'm talking about the Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Breakdown. That's right, this is the final piece that you need to complete the Combiner Menasor from the Stunticons. And I gotta say, this kind of made me a fan of the Stunticons more than I was originally. I've always been a aerial bot and a Combaticon type of combiner person, but I really like Menasor now. This is the first combiner I've ever actually completed at retail, but it turns out I've actually bought this figure before. What do you mean? Well, Breakdown is essentially Wild Rider, just in white, but that's okay. I do kind of like the white Lamborghini mode that he's supposed to look like. Like, he does look very much like his G1 cartoon counterpart, and that's really what kind of matters here. And as a single figure, I don't know whether you would necessarily buy this unless you happen to be like a huge fan of Breakdown himself. I mean, it's not like he got a whole lot of time to shine in the G1 cartoon, maybe in the IDW comics, which I'm just kind of reading through now, so I really couldn't tell you too much about that there from a, kind of historical standpoint. But as a figure, it's kind of weird because this guy, he gets like a pistol, he gets his spoiler, that's supposed to be his like weapons. Whereas every other Stunticon, I think, has like 2 guns. He only gets 1. I don't know. Maybe he's just that good a shot. I really like his alt mode. I like how well painted his robot mode is. But the main reason you're going to get this is to complete Menasor. And you kind of need him to complete the figure. So this is kind of one of those things where you're like, well, I guess I got to do it. And that's kind of where this figure kind of falls, because the individual kind of Stunticons, they're all over the place. Like Motormaster, amazing figure. Would love to get a separate one to display, but I'm not that rich. Dragstrip honestly kind of surprised me because I saw him as like a shelf warmer for a while, but when I got him in my hands, like, wow, this is really awesome. Dead End is probably my favorite Stunticon because if you remember way back in the day, there was the Alternators line of figures, and I think he was like a Dodge Viper or something like that. So having Wild Rider and Breakdown, they're not 2 figures I'm super familiar with. I like how their backpack kibble looks, though. I don't know. There's just something about having their hoods on the back that I kind of like, and the way that particularly Breakdown has just that big white and that painted thing with the Decepticon logo. I'm a big fan of that, but I don't know. Ultimately, what Breakdown is going to fall for you, basically the breakdown on Breakdown, is do you need this to complete the figure, or is this your favorite kind of Stunticon? I might suggest you take a look, if you know anybody who has the Wild Rider figure, go take a look at that, because that's, like I said, this is virtually the exact same mold, some slight retooling here and there. But if you want this to complete Menasor, you do have some options to upgrade your kind of Menasor. There's like third-party kits that you can make Menasor bigger, give him like a bigger sword. You can fill some of those gaps with like the trailer. Really cool stuff. But you do need this figure to complete it. And I'm sure some third party will create something so you can put the two figures facing forward as opposed to having these two figures face back, which gives him more articulation, but then you don't get to display your kind of stunticons as I feel they should be represented. So ultimately, Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Breakdown, let's break it down. If you needed to complete Menasor, odds are you're already at your way to your local GameStop, Toys R Us, or Walmart, and you're picking them up right now. If you're on the fence about this, I might suggest if you want to get Menasor, find this one, because I know he was particularly hard to find at retail. But if you're just kind of a casual fan, you could probably pass this figure over unless you're really in the getting combiners.
Personality programming completed.
I am Megatron, your leader. Declare yourselves to me.
I'm Breakdown. I'll obey too.
We don't have to do this.
After all we've been through, it can't be for nothing.
Ellie!
Hey guys, Ken Reels here, and welcome to my review of The Last of Us, Part 1 for the personal computer. Thank you for Sony for providing a code. Now, I'm not going to mince words about this. This port is bad. If you've seen the internet, you know this port is bad. You've seen some hilarious stuff that has been going on. Because, oh boy, this is a mess. So, obviously, we start off with the file size of this game being a massive 78 gigabytes. I'm like, alright, fine, 4K assets, makes sense. 78 gigs, fine, whatever. So, I specifically installed it on my NVMe using PCI 4.0, just in case we have any issues with loading. The problem is it does not load very well. This game does not load very well. It still takes friggin' forever. Even on my very fast NVMe drive, it loads like ass. And then I'm going to be saying I'm running the game at 1440p with NVIDIA Super Sampling on, and it renders the game at 960p and then upscales from there. Fine, whatever. It's 1440p, totally fine. Again, I have a GTX 3070 Ti, and this is basically word for word what happened when I got the code, and I got the code pretty much on the day it came out. So I boot into the game after waiting for the download, and it goes into loading the shaders, which perfectly fine. Loading the shaders took over an hour. Alright, fine. It's the beginning of the game. This is a big title. This is the start of the game. This is the start boot process. Perfectly fine. Let's load in. So I load into the opening sequence, and everyone's hair is all blocky. I have seen this error before, and I know this is an HDR thing. So I go to try to turn off HDR. HDR is hidden in a sub-menu. I actually had to Google where the hell it was because I had no idea where the heck the HDR set toggle was. Apparently, it is hidden in the sub-menu for brightness, which is weird. Like, why would it be there? So that's a ding on the game already at this point. And so I load back into the opening, texture solved, everything looks good. I go to walk into the hallway of the house, and I get a crash. This is crash number 1. Alright, fine, wait for the first patch. This is patch 1.0.1.6. Alright, loading the game. They have to redo the shaders. So that's another hour of wasted time. And this is the point where if I had paid for this game, I would have refunded it automatically because, frankly, I would have refunded it before I'd even finished the shaders because I had already spent about an hour and a half, close to 2 hours, just dealing with all the settings and changes and whatnot and trying to get the damn thing to run. So, fine. I would have refunded it at this point. But we're reviewing the game, so I deal with the shaders being redone. That's another hour of wasted time. So I load into the game. I go through the entire opening sequence, no problems. I go into the wild beyond the wall. I get a crash. This was maybe about 20 to 30 minutes of game time. I decide to wait for a major patch. So the patch rolled around super late on Friday, the week after launch. That was April the 7th, and that it was patch 1.0.2.0. Alright, finally get to try out the new patch later on in the week. I get through the major combat sequence on the other side of the wall, doing a bit of exploring, and I crash. This was another 20-30 minutes of gameplay. So I'm starting to see a pattern here. And all this time I am also running hardware monitor, so I can make sure that my CPU usage and GPU usage makes sure you guys have an idea on how this affects your PC, because we're all PC guys. When you have a PC port like this, you kind of expect me to go over kind of those things. Before the patch, my CPU was very primarily CPU driven. And obviously that when I went to go deal with the latest major patch, that CPU usage returned to a reasonable level. I'm looking at like 30-40% at that point. At the time of first initial boot, the shaders, it is going to use all of your CPU to load in those shaders. Perfectly fine. You're loading shaders. It makes sense that the CPU is getting hit hard. But once it was done doing those shaders initially, I was seeing about 80 to 90% usage on my CPU, like absolutely ridiculous and unreasonable amounts of usage of my CPU. So I'm going, okay, that's bad. And that's one of the main reasons why I waited for the patch, other than the crashing issues. So I go in, I also am seeing a GPU usage about 98%. Perfectly reasonable. Perfectly fine. I would have liked a little more headway in there, just in case it needed to push it a little more, but it's not the end of the world. So I really do see there's no reason to get any of these crashes overall. And in its current state, the game is broken and will need a major 1.1 patch before I even will consider getting close to even recommending this port. Some of the positives that I got with the 40 minutes of actual gameplay that I had: keyboard and mouse controls, they work perfectly fine. They are exactly what I want, especially with Last of Us, which I find to be absolutely obnoxious when playing on controller. I just don't like how Naughty Dog games control. That's just my personal taste. So I was really looking forward to this port, because keyboard and mouse will make shooting a hell of a lot easier. It maintained a good 60 FPS after that first major patch, and it did some frame dips every so often, but nothing that was considerably just egregious. HDR support is still broken as far as I know, and frankly, I wouldn't want to push my GPU any further, given the fact that without HDR going, it was running at 98%. Not a great look. And apart from the HDR submenu thing that I noted earlier, the options are absolutely spectacular. There's a great amount of options. Borderless window mode actually functions. Borderless window mode should. However, it does by default capture the mouse. You can turn that off in the menu, which is great. That's exactly what I want from a game. When it comes to borderless window mode, especially anyone that, like me, that uses dual monitor setup, borderless window mode always needs to have the option to uncapture your mouse. If not, just by default, not capturing your mouse. Glad it is an option to just not capture the mouse. Perfectly fine. But overall, this port is just as bad as you have seen on the internet, and frankly, it's sad. I am hoping that come the Steam Summer Sale, that this game will be actually functional, and I am sure it will be on the summer sale at maybe a 10 or 20% discount, and I hope to be able to recommend it. I might make a comment on a prototype in the future about it, but as of right now, this game be busted. Do not buy. But I do appreciate Sony for sending me a code, and yeah, I hope the future of this game on PC and the future of Sony on PC doesn't trend towards something like this, and we trend towards another Miles Morales.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me.
You have no idea what loss is.
Go!
A little while ago, I was sent the Instax Mini 12 from Fujifilm for review. Now, we've talked about some of their products in the past, I think, was it 2020 or 2021? Might have even been 2022. They had the cool, attachment for connecting wirelessly to your phone to print images that you took. That they have all these sort of, revival, retro, modern chic point-and-shoot cameras and stuff, and this is part of that line where think like the old classic Polaroids, but much higher quality because they're printing essentially at a much higher DPI and resolution than what you had with those old Polaroids. Now, obviously, it's not the same technology. What this does is it's a much more compact version of what those instant cameras were like in the 90s and earlier. But they print on wallet-sized, maybe it's halfway between like the tiny wallet photos that you'd get from a photo booth and the full-size Polaroid-style instant pictures. They are still small enough to fit into like your wallet or any like credit card slot. If you have one of those like fancier clip wallets that you see people advertising all over the internet on like YouTube channels and whatnot, they'll fit sort of slipped into those, or obviously you can use them for like making collages or scrapbooking, that sort of stuff. And they develop pretty darn quickly. Like, you print them out and they're ready to go pretty much, within a minute or so. And the color and reproduction of like fidelity is so much better than, what you used to get on those old cameras. So I've been playing around. This camera comes in a bunch of different colors. There's a blue, a purple, a green, a pink, and a white, and they're all light pastel colored. They almost look like they'd fit in like a 1960s kitchen. Like, you see like those old kitchen appliances like toasters and mixers and that have that like brushed chrome look, but then they have like pastel colors. It's kind of like that. So interestingly enough, what this does is it combines a decent enough digital camera. Like, we're not talking like high-end DSLR or anything like that, but a decent point and shoot with sort of the technology that was in that portable printer that we talked about a while ago, all into one unit. And you get cartridges, sort of like with the old Polaroids, to pop in, and you get 10 prints per picture there. And, I played around, took some photos. It's very user intuitive, easy to put together, to clip in with the photos. There are different film stocks in that you can get plain ones that have like a white border around them. You can get ones that have like hearts on them, on the borders. And I don't see it yet, but in the past, products like this have done wacky things like they print and then turns out they can be like a sticker. So expect stuff like that to probably come in the future, although don't take my word for it. Immediately it's the kind of thing that you see. Now, in playing around, I found that it was quite user intuitive. It's a pretty much straightforward point and shoot camera, and these are the kind of things that I know that with the colors and the advertising campaign, they're sort of marketing it towards young women, at least from what I see, and people that I know that have been using products like these in the last few years. For instance, my sister-in-law has had her eye on stuff like this, so this is probably gonna sneakily end up with her to see if it has her approval, or just so that she doesn't have to buy one, because I would send one for review, and we'll see what she thinks of it, because she's somebody who a few years ago picked up one of the Polaroids when that was when Polaroid sort of came back, and she's had her eye on the Fujifilm options since then, telling me, she was telling me about this product before we received it for review. So we'll see what she thinks. You're able to turn on a close-up mode, which changes the what is it, like the focal point and the focus point of having that sort of bokeh effect where the background is fuzzy but then the foreground is clear, or you can do the vice versa that way. And it's not like it's a ton of extra features in it. It's a pretty straightforward. They want it to make it so that you can pick it up and use it right away. And the manual is mostly just, here's how you turn it on, here's how you put a new cartridge in of photos, and here's how you operate the basic use of it. There's nothing fancy. You don't have to worry, about, you can give it to a kid and they can figure out how to use it. You can give it to your mom or your grandma or your dad or your grandpa, and they'll have no problem using it. Now, it has a fixed focal lens. What is it? I think 60 millimeter. And it does have a viewfinder, so you can, you're not just shooting blindly, obviously. And it takes about 90-ish seconds, between 60 and maybe 100 seconds or so, to develop the picture. Once you've printed it, it slowly ejects it yourself, and you can pull it out once it's done. It operates on 2 AA batteries. Now, you could... It says you can use 10 packs of 10 pictures before the batteries will drain on it. You might get more if you opted to buy yourself a couple rechargeable lithium batteries, AA's, and pop them in, which is what I did, because I had a bunch of them for my portable Zoom recorder. And I was like, hey, I'll just pop a couple of my lithiums in there. And it didn't really put a dent in it using the package that I received to test. So I imagine if you did that, you wouldn't have to charge batteries for quite some time. And if you don't use it, you forget that you've left it on, it does automatically shut off power after 5 minutes, which is a useful feature that sometimes they don't include in these kind of products. But it's there, which is good. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's a very cute product. I do think it's pretty much foolproof to use, as long as you don't, as long as you figure out how to put the cartridge in and you can point and click buttons and put batteries in, you're good to go. And it's stylish enough. It's the kind of thing that you could have in your decor of your living room or your reading room or something, where you could just sort of put it on a shelf, and it's good enough looking that it can be like a part of your whole background setup, and then you can just take it on the go when you want. So I do recommend checking it out if you're a fan and you want you're a fan of old tech, but brought into the modern day, and you want to just really you know, you have your phone to take super high resolution photos nowadays, but sometimes for like those special moments, you do want to capture it and have like a fun physical tactile thing to work with. And this is gonna, I think, fill that void for you if that's what you would, you know, like to put together with like a family, you know, photo book or a scrapbook or something fun like that.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. I'm here to talk about one of the coolest products we've gotten for review from our friends over at Hasbro. I'm talking about the Transformers Legacy Evolution Voyager class Tarn figure. Now, Tarn is a character you may not necessarily have heard of if you haven't been reading the IDW comics from way back when. Tarn is the leader of the Decepticon Justice Division. Let's just say a bunch of psycho Decepticons you never want to cross because they either may lobotomize you, they may smelt you down, or they may do other various unmentionable things that would probably be considered Cybertronian war crimes. A pleasant fellow, to say the least. But to talk about his figure, this is one of the nicest figures I have ever had a chance to review on the show, and if I'm going to be quite honest, this got me into reading the IDW comics. This figure itself, because I was like, okay, I was really curious about these figures, because I know Hasbro's done figures like Impactor, who really had a showcase during the Last Stand of the Wreckers comics by IDW, but Tarn is something a little bit different. So, like I said, the character's history, if you want to go look it up on YouTube, there's a great channel by a guy called Chris McFeely. He does a whole history on the basics of the Decepticon Justice Division. It's really short. It's worth a watch. But to talk about the figure, the posability on this thing is absolutely incredible, and I love it. Like, you can get so many dynamic poses out of this thing. Like, it's great. It's honestly one of the nicest figures I've ever had in terms of dynamic posability. I would actually say, I'd say it's better than like the Transformers Red figures, which are those Walmart exclusive non-transforming figures, very similar to Action Masters, where they're meant to be highly Marvel Legends posable. Tarn has really good range. Like, he can really swivel his legs up. He's got good arm posability with that double antimatter fusion cannon thing. He's got a great range, and he's a fairly fun transforming too. And I've never seen the way that some of his panels move to get his like tank treads out. I'm a huge fan of that, and having that like Evo fusion gimmick where you can like kind of change where his like fusion cannons are. Like, you can put them on his shoulders, you can put them on his arms where they're supposed to go. You can make it into one long gun if you really wanted to. It's neat. And his alternate tank mode looks bitchin'. Like, honestly, it is so cool. I'm so impressed with this figure on like every conceivable level. The fact that his robot mode's face is the Decepticon logo, while on one hand cringe, on the other hand it's intimidating. It looks great. Like, this is seriously one of the nicest figures I've ever owned, and at a Voyager class price point, totally worth it. If you can find this guy on shelves, do not hesitate to pick this up. And if you're curious to know more about the character, like I said, check out the IDW comics. I'm sure there are tons of reading lists online where you can see where Tarn fights against, well, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it's pretty friggin' awesome. Yeah, so Transformers Legacy Evolution Voyager class Tarn gets a most definite go out, buy this thing right now. You will not be sorry. It is one of the best figures to come out of the Legacy Evolution line.
Hey guys, Ken Reels here, and welcome to my review of Melon Journey, Bittersweet Memories on PC. However, it is available on all platforms, including Switch. And the Steam code was thankfully provided by the folks over at Xseed and Marvelous. And this game from Poppyworks/Froach Club, I don't know how those correlate with each other, because the way the Steam system is, Froach Club still goes to Poppyworks, and Poppyworks is its own thing. It's weird. I don't necessarily know what the difference is between the two distinguished devs of this game, but oddly enough, it is a sequel to an RPG Maker game that you can get over on itch.io. It's a name your price kind of download for that game, but it's a small little adventure game in the style of a old Game Boy game, like an original Game Boy game with the green tint, as it were, playing out. And I gotta say, this game is amazing. The story is you play as Honeydew, searching for your best friend Cantaloupe. And the both of you work desk jobs for a megacorp run by a bunny who mandates that you wear bunny ears at work. You can already start to see where this game is kind of outlandishly weird in its universe. And that's kind of throughout the game, because you start, as you're searching for your friend, you befriend the son of a ghost, a down-and-out musician that is strangely very Elvis, a snake gang leader and their right-hand rat, and a dog raised by fish. Yeah. Overall, this is full of hilarious dialogue. Obviously, it's not voice acted at all because it's emulating a Game Boy game, so you have just like little beats and boops, as it were, for the voices, and it honestly is charming as hell. There's some great dialogue. I think one of the ones that stands out is you talk to a little kid in this park, and the little kid asks, "Why is the grass green? Why is the sky also green?" And I just started cracking up when I read that line. And it is absolutely spectacular. The soundtrack is done by Mokri Jain, and while it's not necessarily my jam in terms of like chill, jazzy beats, as it were, very Game Boy in its structure, and it's not necessarily my jam, but it's still a damn good soundtrack and definitely keeps the tone of it a little more lighthearted and chill. And that's what this game is. It's a very chill time. You're gonna beat it. I beat it in about like 4, almost 5 hours, and that was non 100% run. The way I see it, you're probably going to be looking to closer to 6 hours if you want to 100% the game. And honestly, this is a great game for Switch, or if you have a Steam Deck, totally worth buying. It's going to run you about 15 US, 20 Canadian, and I highly recommend this game. This game is a great time. This is probably one of the best indies I've played all year. And do not be surprised if this ends up being in my best of the year. I will also note that apparently, according to other reviews that I've seen, the Switch version is currently having issues with crashing as of this recording, so keep that in mind. But I still would recommend checking out Melon Journey, Bittersweet Memories, and thank you to Xseed and Marvelous for sending me a code.
Alrighty, I have a review, and it took a little while to get through, not because it was a slog, but because there was so much content, and that is the complete series of Bonanza on DVD from our friends at Paramount, which sent the review box over for it, which I thought they mailed me a brick. I literally did. It was like a solid brick inside of this shipping box, and when I opened it, I was like, oh no, it's every single episode of Bonanza, which, you know, as a kid growing up, I only knew briefly. Things would air here and there, but interestingly enough, locally, when I would go to my grandma's house, she doesn't have cable, but she has like an antenna on top of the roof that they installed, like, you know, a fancy digital one, so she can pick up some, you know, 10-ish channels or so locally. And one of the channels, CHC Hamilton, in the afternoons shows like 4-hour block or 5-hour block of just retro TV shows from the 50s and 60s, and she likes that because for her it's easier to remember. She's having, you know, memory issues in her age, and so she likes watching that stuff. And I would, you know, sit down and be like, hey, it's time for us to watch old-timey TV whenever I visit. And this was one of the shows that's been on. So it's something that for the last year and a half or so, you know, when I would make my visits a couple times a month, we would sit down and watch. So I'm already a little more versed. You know, now they're not airing every episode in order on there, but it is something where I was like, oh, okay, so now I get to know who the characters are. And like, I just sort of had a feel for it. I didn't know that it ran for 14 seasons. So, you know, 432 episodes. So that's something that, you know, if we were going to watch it on TV, you know, it would take me forever to, you know, watch with her. And interestingly enough, in watching this set, because it's 14 seasons, it's multiple seasons in like big boxes, or big, like not even amaray, but those big cases that are plastic, sort of like you see the Paramount's put out for other, you know, big box sets when they're like complete series, and it'll be like seasons 1 through 4 or 1 through 7 or something in one box, and then there's multiple boxes to make up the whole series, and then it's inside of a cardboard slip cover. And that's what they've done here. Now, the last 3 seasons, I believe, are hitting home video for the first time individually on their own. Also included, there was a mention, I'm not sure if it's for the rest of the series, I couldn't find any clarification of that, but it looks darn good, is that season 2, I believe, is the first time that it's ever been fully remastered, whereas the other seasons had been remastered from the original film stock. Season 2, apparently, when it was released initially in like 2 volumes back in the day when every company was doing that, you know, releasing 2 volumes of any show that was over 20 episodes long, on DVD like almost 20 years ago. I believe those were sourced from like 1-inch master Betamax tapes or something, like the broadcast tapes, because they made mention in the box that it's the first time that season 2 has been available from the original 35mm prints. So I guess for people that maybe have been wondering, should they double dip, that is a reason in itself, maybe, because I don't believe season 2 is available, or this version of season 2 is available individually. But the last 3 seasons are, but interestingly enough, there is an extra disc in here with a crap ton of special features. There's different appearances that Lauren Green made on TV talking about the program. There's like crossover discussions. There's other episodes of things related to it. Most interesting of all is this. While this is a Paramount CBS production, a lot of the special features on that exclusive disc, which isn't available in any other way, it's only in this new set, it has a lot of Lauren Green stuff, like I said, but it's a lot of stuff sourced from the CBC in Canada, which is obviously Lauren Green was Canadian, so he did a lot of work here prior to making it big down there in the States. But this is stuff that CBC has never released publicly since they aired the stuff in the 50s and 60s. So CBC has a notoriously bad track record for actually releasing their shows on DVD or home video. At one point, there were other companies that were doing that, but it was very sporadic, and those are way long out of print. So seeing that here is, you know, really good for archivists and people that want to get a glimpse into, Canadian historical television, in addition to everything here with Bonanza. So you've got all of the episodes across, I think it's 112 discs. It's pretty pretty expansive. I personally would have wanted this to have a full Blu-ray release, because you would have been able to shrink down the amount of discs a little bit, and if everything was already being remastered in high def anyway, it would have looked great. I know that there's some reasoning behind having it on DVD itself, and a lot of that is some of the discs may be able to be repurposed from previous sets, which is something that a lot of companies do. But with some of the other stuff in here being new transfers and new things, that's a lot of discs to go switching into your player nowadays. And pretty much like 100% of people that have a DVD player are actually watching it on a Blu-ray player at this point. Seeing as DVD players, a lot of them have died, and when you got to replace them, they're pretty much all Blu-ray players. Or if you didn't want to release it in high definition, my only gripe with this would have been, hey, you could have done what some other companies are starting to do. It started with the anime community, but it is happening overseas in Europe especially, where they're putting Blu-rays out of standard definition content. And with that, it's called like SD on Blu-ray disc or SD-BD. And what you can do is, like, DVD formats are 480i, so 480 lines of resolution interlaced. So there's every other line is being displayed at a time. So you're losing a little bit of, or up to potentially 50% of the image, and it's interpolated from there to make up the full image. And on a standard def Blu-ray disc, it's a standard format. It is. Every single Blu-ray player will play it. It's not like it's a weird, hack or anything. It was a format that was included. You can release it at 480p. So you'd have the full resolution there. Also, using more advanced codecs than MPEG-2. So even retaining the same file size, or even shrinking it, you'd have the same quality. And in those cases, what you end up doing is usually you switch like a season from being on 6 discs to having a season on a single disc, or multiple seasons. Like, you'd be able to shrink 112 DVDs down to likely 12 regular, or 14. You could have 14 discs, one for each season that way, and still release them individually. And again, that's a bit of a tangent, only for space-wise, because if you're a big fan of this, you're going to want it and put it on your shelf anyway. I know there's a lot of Western and comedy fans that would want this. It's not an overly unruly set. It's about as compact as you could possibly make the discs without putting them directly on a spindle. But shelf space is limited nowadays with a lot of people, so that's something that you might want to have to consider. So outside of my gripes of format technicalities and so on, the visual quality is top tier for a standard def DVD. I don't think I've seen a show this old look this good in standard def, so I'm very happy with that. Audio wise, it's been cleaned up and you can hear it. I mean, the show is mono anyway, so as long as the dialogue is clear, it's all that really matters. They've crammed it full of special features. It's got a nice box set. Like the design of the actual cardboard box and storage is good. None of the disc trays or anything in mine were cracked or smashed, which is a huge bonus for something this big and something that could easily be shifted around in transit. So I don't think you're going to have any issues when it comes to the quality of the plastics used. It's pretty solid. So just, if you're picking it up, one thing to be prepared for, and again, it's a great series, and I do recommend it. It's got decent funny laughs in it, decent enough drama when it needs to have it, great Technicolor looking prints of all the episodes, good audio and all that. Is be prepared to be getting up from the couch a heck of a lot, swapping discs to watch everything. Now, I did not review absolutely everything. What I did was I picked 2 episodes from each season across 2 different discs for each season and then watch the special features disc to ensure that I got a decent variety to see if there was any issues with mastering or anything, as well as to see how the progressing video quality went through each season. And it's pretty pristine throughout, so I don't think you're going to have any issues there. If you're somebody that is on the fence about this, it is a pretty substantial purchase. It has an MSRP of $250 US. Looking up currently, as of this recording, which again it can change, on Amazon Canada, they're listing it at $200. So it's actually below the MSRP of the American price. So if you're looking to purchase it on Amazon, I'm not saying you have to or anything, but if you are, look around and you might get a decent deal on it, because at that price, you're paying less than 50 cents per episode. And if you're a big fan or you have a big fan in your family that, you know, you want to surprise with this, at that point it becomes a reasonable price to pay for like a big Christmas or birthday gift. If you can, you know, snag it for $200, that's weeks and months of entertainment.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Greetings, my fellow Starfleet officers. It is I, Lieutenant Commander Mike the Birdman, and I'm here to talk to you about something really special we got for review from our friends over at Paramount Home Entertainment. I'm talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 on DVD. This is one of the best Star Trek shows on television, and I will admit, when this show first came out, I was initially really, really skeptical. I never would have thought of animation and comedy working in a Star Trek setting, and yet this has been some of the most consistent Trek we've ever had. And honestly, it's been a pretty good year for Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek Picard has just ended. Strange New Worlds is coming out. It's a pretty damn good time to be a Trek fan, and I really never thought I'd say those words. But let's talk about Season 3 on DVD. So this once again continues the adventures of the USS Cerritos, the California-class support ship that specializes in second contact, basically support type stuff. And this one has callbacks to previous seasons. These guys go to DS9, and there's always this internal continuity that keeps you invested in these characters of Boimler and Mariner and Tandy and Rutherford and even the kind of bridge crew. And despite them only being 10 episodes, they squeeze a lot of characterization in there and an awful lot of laughs too, which really surprises me how funny this show can be. Like in one episode, they fight like a Borg snake and there's Klingon clowns that have batleths for arms. Quark has franchised his bar all across the Alpha Quadrant. It's an amazing, amazing show. And they even have like references, like I mentioned, to DS9, to Voyager. The Delta Flyer shows up at like one point. And it's so, so good that I'm honestly surprised of what they can cram into, like I said, just 10 episodes a season. We're going to get a season 4 at some point, I think this year. But yeah, so you get the standard 10 episodes. There's like audio commentaries. There's a 30-minute mini documentary where they kind of talk about the overarching season, what they liked about each episode. I keep forgetting that Jack Quaid is the guy from The Boys and from one of the latest Scream movies, and it always throws me for a loop that that's Boimler. But anyway, honestly, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 continues the amazing quality that Lower Decks is, I think, known for. And like I said, if you've enjoyed Prodigy, if you've enjoyed Strange New Worlds, if you like Star Trek Picard, there is so much to like here as a Trek fan, and honestly, I can't recommend Lower Decks enough. It's a fantastic series. It's fast, it's funny, it's definitely found its kind of footing, so to speak. There's some returning characters here that I certainly didn't expect, and kind of a sweet story in there too, and some questions about where this series is going to go next. I gotta say, I'm really excited for it. So Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 most definitely gets the long-range sensors going. That's awesome. And definitely looking forward to Season 4.
Those magnificent bastards!
Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that has been the conclusion of our review special here on this Victoria holiday weekend here up in Canada. Hopefully we gave you guys some good picks, definitely some shows in there that you may not have expected. Bonanza was definitely a part of my childhood kind of growing up. My grandparents used to watch it a lot. So Lauren Green was a frequent guest in my house. That was the guy's name, right, Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, Lauren Green. And yeah, I watched a lot of that growing up. And I didn't get a chance to throw my my audio into Alex's reviews. I just want to throw some kind of thoughts out on there. It's an interesting time capsule of that era of television, and now we do have more Western shows like ones like the Yellowstone 1885. I think the other one's called 1855 or something.
1884, but it's not even just that. It's a weird time capsule in that it's not just a pure comedies, and it's also not just a drama. It was one of the first dramedies, like where, yes, obviously the show was made to be more lighthearted, but every show had a lot more drama than a regular sitcom would have had.
But say, yeah, like it's interesting to watch the evolution of television just to see how we've come from, you know, the really basic sitcoms of Father Knows Best and I Love Lucy to stuff like, I don't know, Quincy, Barnaby Jones, etc.
You mean the casual racism and sexism of Father Knows Best?
Yeah.
Where
Leave It to Beaver.
Where Danny Thomas had to change his own name because he didn't have a white enough sounding name in real life.
Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Dude. 1 second, I gotta pull it up here. It's almost like it's worse than like John Wayne. Let me see.
Yeah. But
Danny Thomas. Danny Thomas's real name, I think it was Lebanese. Amos Muziad Yakub Karouz.
Oh wow.
So,
I would have slaughtered that.
It's a hard enough name to say, so I get it, but he changed it, and he tried to erase any ethnic references to himself because he was told that was what you had to do in Hollywood, right?
And then unfortunate.
Every time I've seen an episode of that show, the Make Room for Daddy / the Danny Thomas show, when it's on CHCH at my grandma's, every time it's an episode like the daughter wants to do something with the brother says no, the daughter wants to do something, and the solution is not, hey, you should work on something together, it's your sister. It's, hey, you should be nice to your sister, she can't help that she's just a girl.
Yeah.
Or and then he talks to her and she's like, shouldn't you have more fun playing with your dolly?
See, one of the things that I really appreciate that Paramount does is when you see an older catalog show like Bonanza get, you know, redone in, you know, like having the complete 400 plus episode run, that's a phenomenal accomplishment of just like, hey guys, here's something you probably don't know you wanted.
Yeah.
And like it, because like it's hard enough to find stuff like that to stream on Tubi or Pluto, or if you want to watch it on CHCH or whatever.
It's almost never the whole series of these shows, even on their own platform.
Yeah.
That's one of the things with Paramount Plus. They have all the I Love Lucy stuff, which is great because like previously shows like Lucy and that had been scattered all around. And I'll say one thing compared to the Danny Thomas show is Lucy was on around the exact same time. I think they started the same year right after each other. Is Lucy, while it might have, if you watch it on its own, a little bit of what we mentioned there on the Make Room for Daddy stuff, it's a lot more like female positive. It's because obviously she was in charge. So, you know, there's not, if there's an episode where, which is a lot of it of, Desi being like, Lucy, I want you to do this. You're my wife. You should be making my sandwiches and all this. The solution for her is to do the worst job possible so that he gets so mad and frustrated. He's like, all right, do whatever you want. And then she's like, okay, honey. Like that's how you got to run it. But like with Make Room for Daddy, it's like, ha 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 ha. Be nice to your sister. She's just a dumb girl.
Oh boy.
And I'm sitting there watching this, and my grandmother's killing herself laughing because, you know, it's bringing back memories of the 50s. And then she turns to me and she goes, wow, this is really old fashioned. And then she turned back to the TV and watching. I'm like, she had that observation.
Yep. You can recognize.
Whereas something like Bonanza, you watch it, it's like, it's already so much further progressed. Like within like 10 years made such a huge difference.
Yeah. So, like, in short, guys, I think you should pick it up. So, Paramount, thank you for sending that over.
Yeah, and I did mention it in the review, and I'll mention it again. It has an MSRP of 250 US, which sounds high until you look. So 250 US is like 320 or something Canadian, right? Amazon has it listed at 200 Canadian.
Yeah, so
And
jump
so,
on that before they change the price.
Yeah, that was the pre-order, and that's what the first run sale price is. Walmart, I believe, is something similar. So if you jump on it before it starts to get scarce, you're paying less than 50 cents an episode.
Yeah, I've got a feeling this is going to be one of those TV shows that likely will be hard to find in a year or two because the print runs so low.
And the people that are going to buy it are going to scoop it up because they're like big fans. Like it's one of those things where if you have a loved one and you've got a budget to buy things for them, I think the upper limit of most gifts for most people is somewhere between 150 and 200, unless you have like a lot of money to spend. But let's be honest, most people's Christmas presents or birthday presents are somewhere in the $100 to $200 range after taxes.
Yeah.
And you can, this is something that you could maybe budget for and have it be a reasonable but be like a huge gift on a more reasonable price comparatively.
Yeah. I gave this to my mother for Mother's Day, and she was so thrilled. My sister-in-law, not so much.
Because she knows that every time she visits the summertime trailer, it's going to be that in the Blu-ray player 24/7.
Yep. So I got an earful. But so we are going to be talking about some other things coming up this week on the show. You should be hearing. I'm going to edit this week. It might not be premiering on the site this week. I'm going to try and do it in the next couple days. Me, Enrique, and Aaron recorded a new loose cannon on USA's Up All Night, which was the USA Network's syndicated program, or not syndicated. It was sort of like horror hosting. After horror hosting, they had like Rhonda Shear, and they would do 3 movies from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. And we're going to talk about the movie Beer Money, which was written by the guy who wrote the XXX movies. We're also going to be talking about 976 Evil, Robert Englund's directorial debut, and arguably, I think, one of his best. And we're also going to be talking about Assault of the Party Nerds. And Enrique gives us a really interesting look into the world of independent filmmaking and what it took to get movies like this bought onto services like USA Network, but also how it works with like kind of modern streaming services like Netflix and Tubi.
For reference, he has a bunch of stuff on Tubi himself.
Yes, like he hosts a show called Popcorn Fodder, and he also does some movies for Tubi, I believe, as well.
Yeah, I saw there was like an anthology series that he's in on there, I think.
Yeah. And we actually, when we're talking during the show, something very interesting happens, and you may see something really cool coming up from Enrique in the future. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, me and Alice are also going to be doing a prototype on Thursday after the Sony showcase on Wednesday, talking about some of the brand new games that will be coming to the PlayStation 5, but also PlayStation 2 VR. And there's the fireworks. There we go. Go Monarchy. Fuck off.
No, it's anybody firing off in their cities here, unless it's in Ottawa, anybody firing off fireworks here, it's not go monarchy, it's go beer.
Exploding chemicals.
Go beer. That's all they care about today.
What else would we be doing this week, Alex?
Well, yeah, so the prototype is, the reason we're doing it is it's the first full Sony showcase in 2 years. It was summer or August of 2021, which is the last time that we saw a full showcase that wasn't like a 20-minute state of play. This is like a full-blown one with over an hour. It's like, talk is it's going to be about 70 minutes long. And then I think there was also like a couple showcases that happened around this time. So if there's any new games to talk about, it's good there because it can be sort of our talk on the Sony showcase as well as maybe our predictions, because it's after that, we're 2 weeks away, not even, barely 2 weeks from the Summer Game Fest show. And then I think the next day is Xbox and the PC gaming one. And then we haven't heard word, I think, on anybody else yet, but that's going to be the bulk of it. And then we're expecting a big Nintendo Direct at some point too.
Yeah, so it's going to be a busy month in June for stuff coming up. So for this last weekend, I know me and Enrique and Aaron are talking about doing some more loose cannons. There's going to be a loose cannon between me and Ken. We're going to talk about some lesser known video game adaptations. I know one of them we're going to be watching, or no, I actually no, I'm wrong. I know two of the three movies. We're going to be watching the Phoenix Wright movie, which I've never seen before. I don't know if we're watching the animated one or the live action one. And we're also going to be watching the Super Mario Brothers movie, not the new one, the one that came out in Japan only in the 1980s.
Oh, the anime.
Yeah, so I've never seen it before. I've only ever seen screenshots because he found a really good copy on YouTube.
It's like picture. I've only seen pictures of it, but like picture in your head the Super Mario Brothers Super Show on a budget.
All right, so that'll be interesting. And then we're also, I think Ken showed me something else. It's a Street Fighter Hong Kong thing, and he's like, Mike, just trust me. I'm like, you know what? You've never steered me wrong before, but I'm wondering if this is where the train jumps the tracks.
Well, did you ever see the City Hunter movie that Jackie Chan made?
No.
Okay, because there's a sequence in there where he hits his head really hard, like gets a concussion in an arcade, and as he's coming out of it, it has like the birds chirping and everything. All the people from Street Fighter 2 come alive, and all the characters from the movie turn into characters from Street Fighter. Like one guy is Dalsim and he spits fire. The bad guy he's trying to fight turns into Ken with a really bad wig.
Oh my God, please send me this clip on YouTube later.
I'm gonna send it to you right after we record. And Jackie Chan turns into Chun-Li with makeup and everything and does the spinning bird kick.
Oh my God. Yeah. So we'll be talking about that. We won't be talking about that specifically, but I may need to ask Ken about this. So yeah, we'll be talking about that later on. Oh, I completely forgot. So speaking of friends of the podcast, we have our friend Enrique. He hosts another podcast called Weekly Spookies, and you may want to tune in this week. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay.
So yeah.
When does it air?
It airs on Wednesdays. So if you go to any podcatcher, type in Weekly Spookies, you'll find it.
Does he do it on YouTube as well?
I think he does clips.
I've seen him do live streams, so I'm just not sure if he does it all on there. But either way, so you said Weekly Spookies.
Yes. So, Alex, you can find a link and throw that in the show notes.
Yep.
But yeah, so look for that on Wednesday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, anyway, guys, I have rambled on enough. I hope you guys had an awesome holiday weekend. I know the Memorial Day weekend for the United States is coming up next weekend. Me and Alex will be back to a regular show schedule. So look for the new show, I guess, on Monday. We're going to record on Sunday once I do some stuff here in town. And we're going to have our first impressions of the Starship Troopers PC game that just recently came out. We couldn't play this weekend because we just couldn't get it to load.
I got it to load yesterday.
Okay.
It needed a bunch of patches and updates, and I did the training tutorial. Works fine so far on my my PC at like 1080p high, almost ultra settings.
Okay.
But I have that Intel card I put on like the Intel super sampling. It probably is going to work almost identical on your AMD card because the rest of our PCs are identical, like as far as specs. So,
okay.
If we see any stuttering, lower the settings. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to play with you yet, but I have run the game and it runs fine.
All right. So yeah, we're going to have our impressions of that next week. I've got some stuff from Paramount. As I was mentioning, I've got Flashdance coming up. I also just got the physical 4K release of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I'll be talking about that. I've got more RPG books I got to talk about. I got some board games from Gale Force 9 I want to look at before the summer blitz hits. So we got a lot of stuff to cover here on the show. And plus we got it's going to be big summer movie season. We'll be talking about some of those in the near future. I know Alex and I had talked about doing a Fast and the Furious loose cannon. I know you haven't seen Fast X yet, but though you're planning to really soon.
Yeah, I'm planning on going. It's all going to depend on my transportation situation. Once that gets sorted, I'm basically, if everything works out sometime in the next 3 weeks, you'll see me going out to the movies a heck of a lot more.
Okay, so I've got about 3 weeks to watch all 9 movies before we could talk about this. So I've got some time. We'll also
you can watch the different eras, movies 1 through 3, street racing era, movies 4, 5, and 6, which are heist movies, and then 7, 8, and 9, plus the spinoff, which is superhero movies.
Mm-hmm. And then probably when Transformers Rise of the Beast comes out on June 9th, we'll probably do a Future Imperfect on the Transformers franchise so far. So covering the 6 movies. Paramount actually sent me over a really nice 6-movie steelbook box set.
I just received that as well. So
yeah, so we'll be talking.
We'll definitely be going over that. Like, again, I got a thing at my door and I'm like, did they mail me a brick?
It's so heavy. It's so heavy.
It's so dense because there's a protective box on it, but each movie has its own steelbook.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that coming up in just a few weeks after Transformers comes out. We're going to do Fast and the Furious. We're going to have a really fun June before we take a break in July, as I've mentioned up. When July 1st hits, the microphone goes off outside of maybe a couple of review shows here and there. We are going to be recording our role play stuff probably at some point during the summer because it's really easy to just get together for an hour, 2 hours, record, just edit it super easy.
Well, and once we shirk off any other, signing off on any other commitments during that month, it means that we'll be able to schedule meetings. It's hard to wrangle people.
Oh God, yeah, especially since I'm so busy in the community now, and now that I'm covering baseball.
And JT's works, all hours because he works, at retail that works sometimes till like midnight, right? So
or later, yeah.
And then we got Ken working the graveyard shifts, so we want to make sure that we're cognizant of people having sleep.
Yeah, exactly. we all want to have a good time, so we were going to record it next month, but with just how busy everything is, we're probably just going to push it to sometime in July. But hey, you know what? It's always fun to get together with your friends and play.
What it means is my recording will be a one-off, and then if yours has to turn into a one-off instead of a full long series, it is what it is. We record a bunch of one-offs and see how it works, because it's a lot easier to commit to one big 3 or 4 hour session at one time than it is to go, hey, we're going to get 12 to 15 episodes of this. It'd be like, how?
Yeah, exactly. So I just have to maybe rejiggle some things, but don't worry, you are getting some content from us. Cambridge shall live on in its own unique way.
Indeed. So, and then, of course, we've still got every Thursday at 7 a.m. we have Earth vs. Soup popping up. And generally Wednesdays is when we throw up the other shows like Future Imperfect or Loose Cannon or anything else that we have. If we end up having some interviews, that's probably the slot it's going to go in. Review episodes, bonus episodes, probably once a month on Fridays, depending on how much content we have. And then Mondays, regular shows, sometimes Tuesdays if Monday happens to be a long holiday weekend. We'll see how it goes. That's pretty much the schedule of what we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, hopefully you had a fantastic long holiday weekend. Thank you for giving us this extra day of grace as the world is exploding outside my window in chemical explosions that have existed since the Chinese era. So good times. Anyway, I have been Mike the Birdman. I've been joined with
Alex the producer.
And guys, we'll talk to you again next time right here on This Week in Geek. And as always, be excellent to each other.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.